In this chapter, we're going to see that delays can actually be used to increase the stereo footprint of a sound. We know about delays as sort of pattern sequence generators, but what we're going to do in this video is to take a monosynth and make it a bit wider. Now, the reason we're going to do that is that the other tracks within this individual production have got reverb, they're big and they're wide and they're spacey. And the bass line here, which is being triggered from a monosynth, just feels a little bit disconnected from those other much grander sounds. And what we're actually going to do is to use delay just to have this sound sit in the mix a little bit more. So here's how it sounds right now without any delay treatment for that stereo width effect we're going to shoot for. Okay, so what we're going to do is to take this sound and I'm going to put Valhalla delay on this part, and I'm actually going to choose the mono to stereo option, which is going to give us the opportunity to set up a stereo delay in time. But actually what we can do is to achieve the effect of a little bit of stereo enhancement even using a single delay, which is here. So firstly, I'm going to choose the mode. I'm going to stick with my tape delay for now. And my mix dial is going to set the balance between the incoming source, the dry signal, and the process signal. Now, what I don't want is to create a sequence where we've got an obvious delay. I don't want a 16th note delay here, which is going to start introducing a repeating rhythm as we've seen in other chapters. Instead, what I want is an incredibly subtle little sort of slap back delay. So what I'm going to do is to select the note option, and I'm actually going to choose a 32th note. So in other words, half the length of a 16th note. Now what that's going to do is to produce this sort of slap back effect. So very sort of subtly, we're going to get a little bit of enhancement of this with a very short delay. And because I don't want to build up a rhythm, I'm actually going to pull the feedback right down as well, so that we only get a really small number of repeats rather than an echo that's going to play round and round and round. I just literally want a couple of echoes and then I want the effect to disappear. Let's just solo this. We'll hear the original sound all by itself, and then what I'm going to do is to unbypass it, so we'll put this delay in. Okay, so there's that slapback effect, but at the moment, the signal is no wider. Now, there's also too much of it. What I'm going to do is to turn the mix down a little bit, so we've got a bit less of it. How am I going to get this stereo spread effect? Well, I've got a spread dial here, and what this is going to do is going to ever so slightly offset or delay a second channel of this effect. So in other words, what I can do is to say, right, I want for, let's say, 8 milliseconds to hold one side of this delay effect. And what that's then going to do is to just basically output its signal a little bit later than the other side. And immediately what that should do is to build up the sense of stereo image in this sound. And you can hear that really clearly as I increase the mix amount, because we're getting more of that effect, and we can hear just that the right hand side is delayed a little bit more than the left, and immediately this bass line feels like it's a little bit more stereo because it's got that sort of enhancement going on now. Let's hear that in context. The mix, we'll experiment with that so we can hear more or less of it as we play back. Now, it could be, obviously this mix dial is now quite high, it's giving us a lot of that effect. And it could be that you want an even shorter effect. In other words, bring this down even more to maybe 1/64, so we get an even faster kind of slapback effect. Remember, it's the delay offset, the millisecond delay offset there, that's going to give us this sense of a stereo image. The alternative, of course, if I want an even greater sense of this mono sound being made stereo, is that what I can do is to come out of single mode and instead come into a dual delay. Now, what this is going to let me do is to basically choose a different delay speed for each side. Again, I'm going to synchronize these so that they're in time with the track, but this now means that I've got a delay on the left-hand side and a delay on the right. Now, lots of the individual dials, therefore, are going to control both sides. The feedback is common to both sides. The mix dial is common to both sides. But now I've got a dedicated left-hand channel and a right-hand channel. And of course, what that's going to mean is that this sound is going to sound a lot more stereo than it did before. And again, if that sounds, the right-hand side sounds like it's delaying too much, I could come the other way. And again, by making this discrete choice on the right-hand side, I've got two separate delay lines, but they're going to be sort of out of the mix even faster now. So immediately what we've got is this sort of increased sense of stereo-ness within this sound. Now, one thing to say, broadly speaking, it's a really good idea to try and keep the bottom end of your mix as monocentric as possible in kick drums and in bass lines too. And this sound is very definitely a bass line. So what if I want to increase the sense of stereo without altering the kind of mono compatibility of the bottom end of my mix? Well, this is where the EQ controls within a delay become really useful, because what I can do is to basically omit the bottom end, leave it out altogether. By turning up the sort of low cut down here, what I can do is to say, right, below this frequency, I don't want to be applying any of this delay. In other words, I can leave the bottom end of the mix entirely without any of this kind of stereo widening effect, keeping the mono compatibility at the same time as making sure that for upper frequency content, when that bass line gets a little bit raspier and a little bit brighter, that's where I'm beginning to spread it out and making it a little bit more stereo. So I can set that wherever I want to. Let's listen to that in the context of the track now as well. It's amazing how little mix you need just to bring in a little bit of this sense of this extra sort of stereo widening effect for suddenly that sound to feel like it belongs in the track a little bit more. So here what we've done is to see how delays can be used to increase a sense of stereo rather than to produce rhythmic bouncing patterns.